Percy didn't make the choice that saved Olympus. Hear me out. We know that the last Olympian revolved around the great prophecy finally coming true, the prophecy that told of a hero who would make a fateful choice that would either save or destroy the gods as we know them. For years, many of us believed that Percy made the choice by giving Luke the dagger, but we believe that's not what happened when we actually look at the wording of the prophecy. A half-blood of the eldest god shall reach 16 against all odds. Self-explanatory. This part does refer to Percy, as does the line, to see a world in endless sleep. But after this, the prophecy is no longer about Percy. The prophecy switches subjects to Luke when it says that a hero's soul a cursed blade shall reap. Even though the rest of the prophecy is about Percy, this particular line is about Luke, and it seems like the rest of the prophecy keeps talking about Luke, because it says that a single choice shall end his days, Olympus to preserve or raise. And we believe these lines are still talking about Luke, and the choice that he was grappling with, not Percy. After all, Percy's choices didn't end his days, but Luke's choice to take the dagger and help Percy absolutely did, and this is actually supported by the Demigod Diaries. In the diary of Luke Castellan, he meets the son of Apollo named Halcyon Green, who has the rare ability to channel the power of prophecy, and he uses it to glimpse into both Luke and Talia's futures. He predicts Talia's time as a tree perfectly, saying she will stand strong and tall, isolated yet alive. And one key detail he's able to see into Luke's future is a choice. If Luke survives today, he will make a choice to betray someone, and we wholeheartedly believe that Halcyon saw this choice foretold in the Great Prophecy. Percy's decision didn't actually do anything when we break it down, because if we look at it through this lens, Percy didn't even have a choice to make. In the book, it's described that his choice was whether or not to give Luke the knife, but there was an alternative since Cronus was burning away his body anyways. To put it simply, Percy had nothing to lose by giving Luke the knife, and nothing to gain by keeping it from him. If he had kept the knife from Luke, then his body would have burned away and Cronus would be free, but Percy would have known that this was obvious. Now let's think about what would happen if Percy gave him the knife and he was wrong, because Cronus still would have risen. He didn't have to weigh the option to give Luke the knife because there was no chance of him being wrong, since giving the knife was 50-50, but keeping it from him would have guaranteed failure. There was no reason for Percy not to give him the knife, no condition under which giving him the knife was the wrong choice, because there wasn't a negative effect of giving Luke the knife. The point of all of this is that nothing that Luke could have done with the knife would have been worse. Luke wouldn't have marched over there and stabbed Percy or Annabeth, and even if he had, Cronus would have incinerated them all just the same. So when we look at it this way, it becomes more apparent that Percy's decision was actually not nearly as conflicted as we were initially led to believe, but Luke's absolutely was. He made the decision to abandon the abuse and mental torture that Cronus had been inflicting. Luke abandoned his entire mission, realized that he was in the wrong, and made the conscious choice to turn on his master. He defied Cronus directly, and made the choice to finally kill him. We wholeheartedly believe that this is the choice the Great Prophecy was talking about, not Percy's illusion of a choice. Luke is a historically conflicted figure. Throughout his entire journey, he's never actually been loyal to Cronus. He's just been against the gods. It didn't matter who was on that side. From his point of view, he's always been just on the side of the demigods, and he believed that awakening Cronus was the most effective way to crush the gods under his heel. If there was another way to do this, or another entity he could have stirred in order to dismantle Olympus, we're confident that he would have done it, and Cronus was just the best option that he had. In fact, the only reason that Percy and Annabeth don't outright fight him is because they don't inherently disagree with his philosophy. They know how bad the gods are. They just think the Titans will be worse. They know how badly the gods have been treating their children. They've been on the receiving end of it for years, and they've watched their closest friends struggle with the trials of being a demigod. Percy and Annabeth understand exactly why Luke is fighting and what he's fighting against, and are also only fighting for the future of the demigods. They don't care one way or another whether the gods themselves survive. They just know that under the Titans, everyone loses. This is part of what makes Luke's choice so fascinating. He's never been on the side of Cronus when we look at it like this, and the choice to betray the Titan Lord at the very end could have been the choice the Great Prophecy was referring to. Again, the exact line says that this single choice shall end his days, and that doesn't apply to Percy. Percy's 16th birthday was just meant to herald the coming of the Great Prophecy. He was the catalyst, the warning that the prophecy was at hand, but the choice was not his. It never was. Even going as far back as the Titan's curse, this makes perfect sense, since Talia could have just as easily been the child of the Great Prophecy if she hadn't joined the Hunters, but that's a topic for another video. In the Trials of Apollo, we learn a bit more about how prophecies work, and Chiron compares it to planting a garden, where prophecies are the seeds that need to be planted in order to grow the future. They're the building blocks that are assembled so the future can be constructed. So it's our belief that prophecies are malleable as long as the certain criteria are met. Humans inherently lack the ability to understand prophecies well enough to avert them, which is why trying to avoid or run from prophecies never ends up working. We do believe, however, that they can take multiple shapes depending on how people respond to them. All that is to say that Talia could have been the child of the prophecy, and Luke still would have been in the position to make the crucial choice at a critical point. At this point of the Titan's curse, he'd not yet hosted Kronos, but he was the head of his army and had the capacity to take him down if he needed to. In fact, we recently published a full video about why Luke was the single demigod that Kronos feared most, so go check that one out if you want a more in-depth breakdown of the idea. The basic premise, however, is that Luke has always been in a position to sabotage Kronos, and Kronos kept Luke beaten and abused in order to keep him subservient. Kronos was afraid of Luke, so he lashed out, torturing Luke with abuse and dreams to make sure he never learned that he was the one with the real power. In the final moment, Luke would have always been the one to have the power to stop Kronos, and the choice to do so would have been his and his alone. We do know that the fate of Olympus was up in the air, and that Luke could have very well made the decision that led to the collapse of Olympus and the gods, so we don't know exactly how Talia's prophecy would have played out, but it's interesting to think about. We know that she and Luke had a much closer personal friendship, and that Luke was always designed to be a dark mirror of what Percy could have been, so it's unclear whether or not his bond with Talia and Annabeth would have led him making another choice at the time, but that still stands under the idea that the choice was his, not Percy's. We are, however, hopeful that he would have continued to make the right choice, because the prophecy specifically says, the hero's soul, the cursed blade shall reap. If the prophecy is truly switching subjects here, and the rest is meant to refer to the same person whose soul will be reaped, then we're optimistic that the choice of the wording is deliberate. The prophecy specifically says, a hero, and this likely means that no matter what, Luke was destined to make the right choice and betray Kronos for the good of Olympus, but the choice had to be his. He's the only one who has always been in the position to stop Kronos, so the choice, more likely than not, would always be his, and since the prophecy refers to him as a hero, we believe he would have made the right decision regardless. But the most important part of this entire theory is your take. Does this breakdown make sense, or is there something that we're missing? As always, we love this series and we love talking about this series, so please join in on the conversation below. We love to have you and we love to hear what you have to say. Take care, friends, and we'll see you around.